Hello again. In The Real Jesus by F.F. Bruce, Jesus' last meals. Now Bruce is talking about Jesus' death anticipated. The record of the Last Supper deserves detailed attention because Jesus' actions and words on that occasion throw light on the significance which he attached to his impending death. That it was impending he had no doubt. He knew of the plans being laid by the authorities. He knew that there was a traitor in the inner circle of the 12. But he regarded it as of the highest importance that he should share this Passover meal with his disciples before his death. He carefully arranged for the place where it was to be held and took steps to make sure that the traitor should not discover its location in advance. He did not mean to be interrupted and arrested until he had finished preparing his disciples for what lay immediately ahead. When Jesus said to them as he gave them the bread, "This is my body," he may have meant, "This is myself." Body was one of the nouns used in his language to convey the force of the emphatic English suffix self attached to a pronoun. He intended them to grasp the fact that he was giving them himself, that he was sacrificing himself for them. When he said, as he gave them the cup, "This is my covenant blood," or "This is my blood of the covenant," he used phraseology which would have reminded some of them of its Old Testament background. After the departure from Egypt, when God gave the 10 Commandments to his people Israel, he brought them into a covenant relationship with himself. He undertook to be their God, and they undertook to be his people. They would worship no other deity, and the law they had just received formed the basic constitution of the covenant. Then Moses took the blood of sacrificed animals and sprinkled some of it on the sacrificial altar, a token of the presence of the invisible God, and the rest of it on the people, saying, "Behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words." That's Exodus 24, verse 8. The covenant ceremony was followed by a meal. The leaders of the people, it is said, beheld God and ate and drank. That's Exodus 24, verse 11. The covenant blood of which Jesus spoke was his own. It is difficult to avoid the conclusion that he looked on his death as inaugurating a new covenant to take the place of that established in Moses' day. Midway between Moses and Jesus, the prophet Jeremiah foretold how, in days to come, God would establish a new covenant with his people, a better and more durable covenant than that established when the Israelites came out of Egypt. That's found, by the way, Jeremiah 31, verses 31 to 34. Some later New Testament writers had no doubt that it was through Jesus that this promise of a new covenant was fulfilled. And indeed, Paul and Luke, in their report of the words of institution spoken over the cup, say new covenant, where Mark, followed by Matthew, has simply covenant. The implication is that Jesus had in mind the establishment of the new covenant foretold by Jeremiah. This, at least, is certain through the death of Jesus, which is what he meant by the outpouring of his blood. Men and women have been brought into a new and abiding relationship with God. When they drink the communion wine, they acknowledge with gratitude this relation into which Jesus, through his death, has introduced them. Moreover, according to Mark, Jesus spoke of his blood as being poured out for many. This phrase has the same force as it has in his saying that the Son of Man came to give his life as a ransom for many. That's Mark 10:45. In both places, it probably envisages the extension of the saving benefits of his death to embrace Gentiles as well as Jews. To Mark's phrase, "for many," Matthew adds the interpretive words, "for the forgiveness of sins." Matthew 26:28. Jesus was to be violently seized and put to death, but he was not content to be a passive and protesting victim. He would take the initiative, and in the hour of death, present his life to God as a sin offering for others. The idea of presenting one's life to God in this way was not unprecedented. Some of those faithful Jews who were put to death for refusing to forswear their faith in the days of the Maccabees are recorded as offering up their sufferings to God on behalf of their fellow Israelites. One of them, the aged scribe Eleazar, said with his last breath, "O God, be gracious to thy people, and let our punishment be a satisfaction for them. Make my blood their purification, and take my life to ransom theirs." That's 4th Maccabees 6, 27 to 29. Similar efficacy on Israel's behalf is ascribed in some strands of rabbinical theology to the self-surrender of the patriarch Isaac when his father Abraham was about to sacrifice him on Mount Moriah. Isaac's life, however, was spared at the last moment. But it is a matter of historical fact that within a generation of the death of Jesus, many men and women from Israel and the Gentiles alike experienced the liberating assurance of forgiveness of sins through his death, not to speak of the many more who have experienced the same assurance in each succeeding generation since then. The giving up of his life has indeed proved to be a ransom for many. When Jesus said, after giving his disciples the cup, "I shall not drink again of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God," he meant this at least: the final establishment of the kingdom of God, which he had proclaimed, the rule of God in the lives of human beings, was to be dependent on his death. His death was to be more powerfully effective than any preceding aspect of his ministry. Neither he himself, in prospect, nor his disciples in retrospect, regarded his death as an abrupt termination to his ministry, but rather as the event which crowned his ministry. Next chapter is arrest and trial. So next time we go to Gethsemane. I'll put in a link to a video we did from Genesis 22 where we find the account of Abraham and Isaac's trip to Moriah, which is a brilliant shadow, if such a thing can exist, a brilliant shadow of Messiah's death and its significance. See you next time.